So, having obtained your water, what else do you need to sustain a soldier in the jungle in World War II? You're going to need some food. In the jungles of Burma, there were all sorts of fruits that used to grow on the tree. Some of them delicious, like there was mangoes, there was guava. They used to say that if you could see what the wild animals, the monkeys, if they were eating these, they might well be safe for you to eat, or look what the native people were eating too. But a lot of soldiers, particularly those from Great Britain, those in the 14th Army, said, we're not trusting any of that, we're not going to try any of those fruits, we're going to just stick to our rations. 2 ounces of cheese, 1 ounce of milk powder, 9 ounces of raisins and almonds mixed, 4 ounces of sugar, and maybe acid drops or boiled sweets, some chocolate, if it didn't melt before it got to you, and some salt that would be added to your bottle of water to help you keep saturated and hydrated. There would also be tea powder, and that, of course, is essential. Amongst the standard British rations were 12 ounces of shakar biscuits. They're pretty much the British hardtack biscuit. Now these were known to soldiers in the First World War, and even a bit before that. Standard fare, good stuff, you could march on it, you could probably sole your boots with it. They used to say, you know, they look very much like a dog biscuit and got all the same amount of charm and about the same amount of flavour. Just to soften them and to make them more pleasant, you break them up, put them into your mess tin. As you can see, it's really hard. And then you add the cold tea that you can to them, and you leave them for a while to soak. Soldiers would often add a few raisins from their rations and maybe even a sprinkle of sugar. So I know what you're all wondering, what does it taste like? Give it a go. You know what? It's not bad. In the jungle, crate loads of supplies would be dropped to you by aircraft. The trouble was that sometimes that crate would have all the same food in it. So you could end up with a crate load of corned beef. The trouble was the temperature in the Far East also meant that corned beef also turned into a bit of a mulch that you'd, rather than cut it out and kind of pour it out. You could have tins of sardines. Tomato sauce, not bad. Or you could have pork and beans, or baked beans. There are an awful lot of beans in the jungle, and if you were really lucky, you might get meat and vegetables in a tin, and you may even get a creamed rice pudding, just for a change. It wasn't just the Royal Air Force that was supplying the 14th Army out in Burma. The United States Air Force also dropped supplies by the crate load, and every man, if he got his K-ration supply crate, would receive, well, 3 boxes of K-rations. You'd have a box for breakfast, you'd have a box for dinner, and you'd have a supper box too. And it was said if you wanted to boil up your kettle or you boil up your mess tins, one of these boxes was supposedly just enough to get it to boiling point. Quite clever, actually. So what would you have for an American lunch out of a K-ration? Well, it says there's cheese, there's assorted biscuits, confection, that's probably going to be sweets, lemonade or orangeade, that would be in a powdered form, lumps of sugar, that will keep the energy up, and even some chewing gum. Every soldier should be carrying his trusty mess tins. There are 2 of them. You use them for all sorts of purposes. Use your mess tin in the morning with a little bit of precious water when you're going to have a shave. Mess tins are also used to brew up that all-important mugger cha. Now the last thing soldiers would do on the long trail at night time would be to brew up a mess tin of tea. They would then pour it into a spare bottle and bury it in the ground next to where they'd be sleeping that night. And come the morning, you dig it up, take the top off, have a quick swig, and you've got some warm-ish tea to start your day. Now what we've looked at are soldiers that have received their rations. Sometimes the aircraft would drop these whole parcel of rations in completely the wrong area. It wasn't the pilot's fault, it was just the navigations, the difficulty of jungle, but it did mean that the men sometimes would go without food for quite long periods of time, and what they did have left, they'd have to make go further by sharing with each other. It's part of the teamwork that helped win the war in the jungle.